Chapter 1. Your mind is weak because you let it be. Part 1. The lie of natural identity. We live in an era of labels. We walk around with badges pinned to our chests that say, I have an anxious personality, or I am just a naturally sensitive person, or I've always been hot-headed. We treat these labels as if they were written in our DNA, as unchangeable as the color of our eyes or the height of our frames. But here is the cold, hard truth that most people are too afraid to tell you. You aren't naturally anything. You are a product of your repetitions. When you say you are an emotional person, what you are actually saying is that you have spent 20, 30, or 40 years rehearsing emotional instability. Every time life pushed you and you pushed back with a scream, a sob, or a collapse, you weren't just expressing yourself. You were training. You were laying down neural pathways. You were teaching your brain that the appropriate response to pressure is to break. Think about an athlete. An athlete doesn't walk onto the field and say, I'm just naturally bad at catching. No, they recognize that catching is a skill. If they drop the ball, they go back to the jugs machine and catch 1,000 balls until the weakness is purged. Your mind is no different. If you find yourself dropping the ball every time someone gives you a bit of criticism or every time a plan goes sideways, it isn't because you were born weak. It's because you have let yourself stay weak. You have prioritized your comfort over your conditioning. Part 2. The architecture of fragility. Why do we do this? Because weakness is easy. Strength is expensive. Strength costs you your excuses. Most people have built a life that is an architecture of fragility. You avoid the people who challenge you. You stay away from the tasks that might make you look foolish. You surround yourself with yes men and digital echo chambers that tell you that your feelings are always valid and that the world should change to accommodate your sensitivity. But the world doesn't care about your sensitivity. The world is a chaotic, grinding, indifferent machine that will continue to move whether you are crying in a corner or standing tall. Look at the people around you. Have you noticed how many individuals collapse under the weight of a small criticism? You see it in the workplace every day. A manager tells an employee that their report needs a total rewrite. A weak-minded person hears this and doesn't see data for improvement. They see a personal attack. Their heart rate spikes. They feel the prickle of tears. They go home and tell their friends how toxic their boss is. What actually happened? Did the boss hurt them? No. The boss spoke words. The employee's mind, having never been calloused by discomfort, simply didn't have the skin to handle the friction. They have no mental resistance because they have spent their entire lives avoiding friction. Part 3. The science of repetition. Your brain is a machine built for efficiency. It wants to find the path of least resistance. If, for the last 10 years, your default response to stress has been to vent, complain, or seek immediate distraction, your brain has built a superhighway to that reaction. This is what I call practicing the flinch. Imagine someone throws a punch at your face. You flinch. That's a biological reflex. But a professional fighter has trained that reflex out of their system. They have stood in the ring and let punches fly at them until the flinch is replaced by a parry. They didn't lose the ability to feel fear. They lost the habit of reacting to it uncontrollably. You are currently a mental flincher. When life throws a punch, a bill you didn't expect, a breakup, a rude comment, you flinch. You react emotionally because that is the highway you have paved. To strengthen your mind, you must first acknowledge that your current weakness is a choice you are making every single day. You are choosing it when you hit the snooze button. You are choosing it when you complain about the weather. You are choosing it when you allow a stranger's opinion to dictate your mood. Part 4. The 24-hour resistance training. So, how do we begin? We begin by recognizing the small weaknesses. The big tragedies of life, the deaths, the bankruptcies, the disasters, those aren't where mental strength is built. Those are where it is tested. Mental strength is built in the mundane. It is built when you are hungry and you decide to wait an extra hour to eat, just to show your stomach who is in charge. It is built when someone is slow in front of you in traffic and you consciously decide to keep your grip light on the steering wheel and your breath steady, rather than succumbing to the trained habit of rage. Stop thinking of your mind as a soul or a spirit. Think of it as a muscle. If you want a strong chest, you go to the gym and you push weight. If you want a strong mind, you go into the world and you push back against your own impulses. Part 5. Breaking the victim loop. The greatest enemy of a strong mind is the victim loop. The victim loop sounds like this: this happened to me, therefore I feel this way, and because I feel this way, I'm allowed to act out. The master of their mind breaks that loop at the very first link. This happened to me. Period. Full stop. The interpretation is where your power lies. If you interpret an event as a disaster, your mind will follow that lead and produce the chemicals of disaster: cortisol, adrenaline, stress. If you interpret that same event as training, your mind produces the chemicals of focus. You must stop letting your mind be a garbage disposal for every stray emotion that passes through. You must become a gatekeeper. You must look at your own thoughts and say, that thought is weak. I will not entertain it. That reaction is childish. I will not perform it. Part 6. Summary and action. If you want to be unshakable, you must start by being honest. You are not naturally anything. You are what you have practiced being. From this moment forward, you must treat every emotional reaction as a conscious choice. If you get angry, admit to yourself, I'm choosing to practice anger right now. If you feel like giving up, say, I'm choosing to rehearse defeat. When you frame it as a choice, you reclaim the power to change it. You didn't lose control because you are a sensitive person. You lost control because you haven't valued discipline enough to keep it. The training starts now. Not in a week. Not when your life gets easier. But right now, in the middle of your mess, in the middle of your noise. Repetition phrase. As you go through your day-to-day, keep this phrase on a loop in the back of your mind. Let it be the judge and jury of your actions. You didn't lose control, you practiced losing control. If you find yourself snapping at a loved one, you didn't lose control, you practiced losing control. If you find yourself scrolling on your phone to avoid a hard task, you didn't lose control, you practiced losing control. Identify the practice. Change the habit. Strengthen the mind. Chapter 2. Stop reacting instantly. Delay is power. Part 1. The curse of the knee-jerk. If I poke you with a needle, you flinch. That is a biological reflex. If I throw a ball at your head, you duck. That is an instinct. These are survival mechanisms designed to keep your physical body intact. But we have allowed these physical reflexes to bleed into our psychological lives. Today, most people live in a state of constant, psychological knee-jerk. Someone says something rude to you on social media, and your fingers are typing a rebuttal before you've even finished reading the sentence. Your partner makes a passive-aggressive comment about the dishes, and you have a snarky comeback locked and loaded before they've even walked out of the room. Your boss sends an email that sounds slightly accusatory, and your heart is racing, your blood is boiling, and you are already mentally drafting your resignation. This immediacy is not a sign of passion. It is not a sign of standing up for yourself. It is a sign that you have no discipline. It is a sign that you are a puppet, and anyone with a needle can make you dance. If your environment can dictate your internal state in a fraction of a second, you are not a leader, you are a casualty. Real power does not lie in the ability to hit back fast. Real power lies in the ability to sit still while the world screams for a reaction. Control begins in the pause. Part 2. The biological hijack. To understand why you react so fast, you have to understand the hardware you're operating with. Deep inside your brain sits the amygdala, the almond-shaped almond of ancient hardware designed to detect threats. To your amygdala, there is no difference between a tiger jumping out of the bushes and a coworker replying all to point out your mistake. Both are seen as threats to your survival or your social standing. When the amygdala is triggered, it performs what psychologists call an amygdala hijack. It floods your system with adrenaline and cortisol. It shuts down the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for logic, long-term planning, and social nuance. It turns you into a cornered animal. When you react instantly, you are reacting with a shut-down brain. You are using 10% of your cognitive capacity to handle 100% of a problem. This is why, 5 minutes after an outburst, you often think, why did I say that? That was stupid. I made it worse. You said it because you weren't you. You were just a biological reflex in a suit. Strengthening your mind requires you to build a manual override for this system. You must learn to recognize the surge of the hijack and refuse to let it reach your mouth or your hands. You must learn to stay in the driver's seat while the animal in the back seat is barking. Part 3. The Gap of Freedom. The psychologist Viktor Frankl, who survived the horrors of Nazi concentration camps, once wrote about the fundamental nature of human freedom. He said, "Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." If you are a weak-minded person, your space is non-existent. The stimulus happens, and the response follows immediately, like an explosion following a spark. There is no choice. There is only a chain reaction. If you are a strong-minded person, you work every day to widen that space. You want that gap to be so wide that you could park a truck in it. When someone insults you, the stimulus hits. A weak person reacts in 0.5 seconds. A disciplined person waits. They wait 5 seconds. They wait 5 minutes. They wait a day. In that waiting period, the adrenaline fades. The prefrontal cortex comes back online. The animal calms down. And suddenly, you aren't reacting, you are responding. A reaction is emotional and reflexive. A response is strategic and intentional. One makes you a victim. The other makes you a master. Part 4. The High-Level Leader. Think about the people you respect most in your industry or your life. Think about the heavy hitters. When a crisis hits, when the market crashes, when a major client leaves, when the building is literally on fire, how do they behave? Do they run around screaming? Do they send frantic, typo-ridden emails at 2 a.m.? No. The highest-level leaders are characterized by a disturbing level of calm. While everyone else is escalating the problem with panic, the leader is de-escalating the problem with silence. There is a psychological concept called emotional contagion. Emotions are like viruses. If one person panics, the whole room tends to panic. But the inverse is also true. If one person remains absolutely, unshakably still, they become the anchor for the entire group. By delaying your reaction, you aren't just saving yourself from making a mistake. You are asserting dominance over the environment. When you don't react to an insult, the person who insulted you looks small. When you don't panic in a crisis, the crisis loses its power. Silence and delay are the ultimate power moves because they signal to everyone watching that you are in total control of the only thing that matters, yourself. Part 5. The Social Cost of Speed. We live in a fast culture. We want high-speed internet, fast food, and instant gratification. This has led us to believe that fast is always better. We think that the person with the quickest wit or the fastest comeback is the winner of a conversation. But look at the debris left behind by fast reactions. How many friendships have been ended over a text sent in 30 seconds of anger? How many careers have been ended because of a single sent email that should have stayed in the drafts folder? How many marriages have been scarred by a truth blurted out in the heat of an argument? A truth that wasn't actually true, but was just a weapon used by a reacting ego. Speed is the enemy of wisdom. When you react instantly, you are prioritizing the release of your own pressure over the outcome of the situation. You feel a pressure of anger, and you want to get it out. So you vent. You yell. You hit send. You feel a moment of relief, followed by a lifetime of consequences. A strong mind values the outcome more than the release. A strong mind is willing to sit with the pressure of anger or the sting of an insult and let it burn internally rather than letting it ruin a relationship or a reputation externally. Part 6. How to train the delay. You don't get better at this by reading about it. You get better by doing it when it's hard. Here are your training drills for widening the gap. 1. The 10-second rule for small irritations. The next time you drop your keys, or someone cuts you off, or your computer freezes, do not make a sound. Do not sigh. Do not curse. Set a mental timer. Count to 10. Feel the heat in your chest. Observe it. Don't fight it, but don't let it reach your muscles. After 10 seconds, proceed with the solution. 2. The 24-hour rule for conflict. If you receive an email or a message that makes you angry, you are legally forbidden, by your own internal code, from responding for 24 hours. You can draft the response. You can write the meanest, most vitriolic reply possible. But you do not send it. You sleep on it. You will find that 99% of the time, the response you send the next day is 90% shorter and 100% more effective. 3. The physical anchor. When you feel a hijack coming on, change your physical state. Take one deep breath, into the belly, not the chest. Exhale slowly. This sends a physical signal to your nervous system that you are not being hunted by a tiger. It forces the prefrontal cortex back into the game. Part 7. Conclusion. The world is trying to provoke you. Every news headline, every social media algorithm, and every difficult person you meet is designed to get a reaction out of you. They want your attention, your anger, and your energy. When you react instantly, you are giving them exactly what they want. You are letting them win. Stop being so easy to trigger. Stop being so predictable. The moment you learn to delay your reaction is the moment you become dangerous to your enemies and a rock for your allies. You are no longer a leaf in the wind. You are the mountain. The wind blows, the rain falls, the lightning strikes, and the mountain just sits there. It doesn't move. It doesn't flinch. It doesn't react. It waits for the storm to pass. Repetition phrase. Carry this with you. Say it when you feel your heart rate climb. Say it when you feel your ego wanting to scream. Say it until it becomes your new reflex. Pause. Breathe. Then decide. Someone insults you. Pause. Breathe. Then decide. The deal falls through. Pause. Breathe. Then decide. The world is ending. Pause. Breathe. Then decide. Your power is in the pause. Don't give it away. Chapter 3. Emotional control is a skill, not a personality. Part 1. The identity trap. We have a dangerous habit in our modern culture of turning our temporary struggles into permanent identities. We don't just say, "I'm feeling anxious right now." We say, "I'm an anxious person." We don't say, "I lost my temper in that meeting." We say, "I'm just a hot-headed person, that's just how I'm wired." This is the identity trap. It is a subtle form of mental laziness. By labeling your lack of emotional control as a personality trait, you are giving yourself a lifelong pass to stay weak. If it's just who you are, then you don't have to do the hard work of changing it. If it's just your nature, then you aren't responsible for the wreckage your emotions leave behind. But let's be very clear, emotional control is not a gift. It is not something you are born with like blue eyes or a fast metabolism. It is a cognitive skill. It is a technical proficiency. It is no different from learning how to code, how to speak a second language, or how to bench press 300 pounds. The reason you are emotional is not because of your personality. It is because you are untrained. You are like a person who has never stepped foot in a gym trying to lift a heavy crate and complaining that they are naturally weak. No, you aren't naturally weak. You are just physically unconditioned. You haven't done the representatives. You haven't built the fiber. You haven't earned the strength yet. Part 2. The muscle of the mind. If you want to build a bicep, you provide resistance to the muscle. You tear the fibers, you feed them, and they grow back thicker. The mind works on the exact same principle of overload and adaptation. Every time you experience a trigger, something that makes you want to scream, cry, or hide, you are standing in the middle of a mental gymnasium. That trigger is the weight. Your reaction is the lift. If you allow the weight to crush you, you stay weak. If you hold the weight, breathe through the tension, and maintain your form, your emotional muscle grows. Most people spend their lives avoiding the gym. They stay away from anything that might trigger them. They seek safe spaces. They avoid difficult people. They run from high-stakes situations. And because they never lift any emotional weight, their control muscle atrophies. By the time life forces them to handle a real burden, they have zero capacity. They fold instantly. A strong mind views triggers as opportunities for growth. When someone is being unreasonable, the strong mind thinks, "Excellent. A heavy set of patience. Let's see if I can hold my form. When a project fails, the strong mind thinks, a heavy set of resilience. Time to work the core. They don't see these events as attacks, they see them as training sessions. Part 3. The science of neuroplasticity. This isn't just motivational fluff, this is biological reality. Your brain is plastic. It is constantly rewiring itself based on what you do most often. This is called Hebb's law, neurons that fire together, wire together. When you get angry and start shouting, you are firing a specific neural circuit. The more you do it, the thicker the insulation, myelin, around those neurons becomes. You are literally building a high-speed anger expressway in your brain. Eventually, it becomes so fast that you don't even feel like you have a choice anymore. You just are an angry person. However, the reverse is also true. Every time you feel that surge of anger but you choose to remain silent, every time you feel that wave of panic but you choose to stay focused, you are firing a different circuit. You are firing the circuit of the prefrontal cortex, the CEO of your brain. At first, this circuit is like a faint trail in the woods. It's hard to find and difficult to walk. But with every repetition, the trail becomes a path. The path becomes a road. The road becomes a highway. Eventually, staying calm becomes your natural response. Not because you were born that way, but because you built a calmness expressway through sheer, repetitive will. Part 4. The athlete's coldness, the example. Consider the elite athlete. Think about a professional golfer standing over a putt that is worth $3 million. Or a basketball player at the free throw line with 1 second left, 20,000 people screaming for them to fail, and the championship on the line. Do you think those athletes are naturally calm? Absolutely not. Their hearts are hammering at 160 beats per minute. Their adrenaline is surging. Their lizard brain is screaming at them that this is a life or death moment. But if you look at their faces, they look like stone. Why? Because they have practiced the skill of emotional regulation as much as they have practiced the physical skill of the game. They have spent thousands of hours in simulated stress. They have been yelled at by coaches, they have played through pain, and they have lost on the biggest stages. They have conditioned their nervous system to recognize that pressure is a privilege. They have learned to decouple their feelings from their actions. They might feel the fear, but their hands stay steady because they have trained their hands to ignore the fear. You must treat your life like a sport. The meeting is the game. The argument with your spouse is the game. The financial crisis is the game. You don't need to feel better to do better. You just need to execute the skill of control regardless of how you feel. Part 5. Breaking the personality myth. The most dangerous thing you can do is believe that your emotions are telling you the truth. Emotions are just chemical signals. They are weather patterns. They are not you. If it's cloudy outside, you don't say, I am a cloudy person. You say, the weather is cloudy, but I am still the person walking through it. You must learn to view your emotions with the same clinical detachment. I am noticing a sensation of jealousy in my chest. I am observing a thought of inadequacy in my mind. When you use this language, you create a distance between your identity and your experience. You are the observer of the emotion, not the victim of it. Once you are the observer, you can decide what to do with it. You can choose to ignore the jealousy. You can choose to dismiss the inadequacy. This is the shift from an untrained person to a skilled one. An untrained person is at the mercy of the weather. A skilled person carries an umbrella, wears a coat, and keeps walking toward their destination regardless of the storm. Part 6. Practical training drills. How do you build this skill starting today? You start with microdoses of discomfort. 1. The no complaint 24 hours. For the next 24 hours, you are not allowed to complain about anything. Not the weather, not the traffic, not the food, not your tired legs. Complaining is the outward expression of an untrained mind. By silencing the complaint, you force the mind to process the discomfort internally. You are doing a mental plank. 2. Voluntary hardship. Do something every day that makes your animal brain want to quit. Take a cold shower. Go for a run in the rain. Eat a meal you don't particularly like. When your brain starts screaming, I don't like this. Stop this. Make it stop. Sit with that feeling. Smile at it. Tell that voice, I hear you, but you aren't in charge. I am. 3. The emotional audit. At the end of every day, ask yourself, when did I lose my form today? When did I let my feelings dictate my actions? Don't judge yourself. Just analyze the data. If you snapped at someone, identify the trigger. Next time that trigger appears, you will be expecting it. You will be ready to lift the weight. Part 7. Conclusion. Stop waiting for a day when you will finally be a calm person. That day is never coming. You will never be a calm person. You will only ever be a person who practices calmness. The world doesn't give you peace. You impose peace upon the world through your own discipline. You are the captain of your ship. The waves will high, the wind will howl, and the crew may panic. But the ship goes where you point it, not where the waves push it. Stop identifying with your weakness. Trash the labels. Tear up the anxious person ID card. You are a student of control. You are an athlete of the mind. And every single second of your life is a chance to get a rep in. Repetition phrase. Write this down. Put it on your mirror. Say it when you feel the world starting to shake you. Remind yourself of the truth. Control is trained, not gifted. You aren't too emotional. You are just out of practice. Get back in the gym. Do the work. Build the mind that nothing can shake. Chapter 4. The world respects stability, not sensitivity. Part 1. The modern delusion. We live in a culture that has begun to fetishize sensitivity. We are told that being in touch with our feelings is the ultimate virtue. We are encouraged to be vulnerable at all times and to prioritize our emotional comfort above the mission at hand. But there is a massive, dangerous distinction that the world refuses to make. There is a difference between having empathy and being emotionally fragile. Empathy is the ability to understand others. Stability is the ability to remain upright while others are falling over. The cold truth that no one wants to admit in public is this: the world does not respect sensitivity, it respects stability. When the storm hits, no one goes looking for the most sensitive person to lead them. No one looks for the person who is most in touch with their anxiety when the business is failing or the family is in crisis. They look for the rock. They look for the person who hasn't blinked. They look for the individual who can absorb the shock of reality without shattering. If you are a person who feels everything and lets those feelings dictate your outward behavior, you are a liability. You might be a nice person, but you are not a reliable person. And in the hierarchy of human value, whether in the boardroom, the battlefield, or the household, reliability is the gold standard. Part 2. The pilot and the passenger. Imagine you are on a flight crossing the Atlantic. Suddenly, the plane hits massive turbulence. The cabin lights flicker, the oxygen masks drop, and the aircraft plunges 500 feet in a second. In that moment of terror, do you want the pilot to come over the intercom and say, "I'm feeling really overwhelmed right now, I'm struggling with a lot of fear, and I just need to sit with my feelings for a moment"? Of course not. You would be horrified. You don't want a sensitive pilot. You want a stable pilot. You want a pilot who has conditioned their nervous system to ignore the feeling of fear and focus entirely on the action of flying. You want someone who can look at a dashboard of flashing red lights and make a logical decision without their hand shaking. You are the pilot of your own life. Your family, your team, and your friends are the passengers. When your life hits turbulence, when the bank account is low, when the health report is bad, when the relationship is strained, everyone in your cabin is looking to you. If you panic, they panic. If you collapse, the whole plane goes down. Stability is not the absence of emotion. It is the mastery of it. It is the ability to feel the turbulence and keep your hands steady on the controls anyway. Part 3. The social cost of being difficult. Have you ever met someone you had to walk on eggshells around? We all have. This is the person who is so sensitive that you have to carefully curate every word you say to them. You can't give them honest feedback because they'll cry. You can't joke with them because they'll get offended. You can't rely on them on a Tuesday because they might be having an emotional day. Think about how you actually feel about that person. Do you respect them? Do you trust them with big responsibilities? No. You handle them with kid gloves. You keep them on the periphery. You don't give them the truth because they can't handle the weight of it. Being too sensitive is actually a form of unintentional manipulation. It forces everyone around you to do the emotional labor of managing your state. It makes you a burden. A stable person, on the other hand, is an emotional anchor. When you are stable, people can give you the truth. They can bring you the bad news. They can challenge you. And because they know you won't explode or collapse, they trust you. Stability is the foundation upon which all real influence is built. If people can't predict your reaction, they will never fully follow your lead. Part 4. The corporate ladder of calm. In the professional world, there is a glass ceiling of temperament. You can be the most brilliant coder, the most creative designer, or the most talented salesperson in the room, but if you are reactive, you will eventually hit a ceiling. Why? Because high-level leadership is nothing more than managing chaos. The higher you go in any organization, the more problems you have to solve and the more heat you have to take. Boards of directors and CEOs do not promote people who react. They promote people who absorb. Real-world example. Consider two executives. Executive A is brilliant but passionate. When a project fails, they yell. When they get a disrespectful email, they fire back a nastygram. Everyone knows when Executive A is having a bad day because the whole office feels the tension. Executive B is perhaps 10% less talented than Executive A, but they are unshakable. When a project fails, they say, "Understood. Let's analyze the failure points and pivot by Monday." When they get a disrespectful email, they ignore the tone and respond only to the data. Who gets the promotion to VP? Executive B, every single time. Executive B is a safe pair of hands. Executive A is a ticking time bomb. In a high-stakes environment, brilliance is a commodity, but stability is a rarity. Part 5. Stability is a competitive advantage. In any negotiation, in any conflict, and in any competition, the person with the most emotional control has the advantage. If I can make you angry, I can make you stupid. When you are angry, your vision tunnels. You stop looking at the long-term game and start looking for a short-term win to soothe your ego. You make mistakes. You over-leverage yourself. You reveal your hand. But if you are the person who cannot be provoked, the person who remains calm while the other side is shouting, you have already won. By remaining stable, you force the other person to play against themselves. They start to wonder why you aren't reacting. They get nervous. They start to over-explain. They start to crack. Your stability is a psychological mirror. It reflects the other person's instability back at them. In a world of people who are constantly screaming for attention and reacting to every slight, the person who can remain silent and steady is a terrifying opponent. Part 6. How to embody stability, the rock strategy. Embodying stability isn't just an internal shift, it's a physical and linguistic one. To be respected for your stability, you must act stable until the habit becomes your nature. 1. Control your physical tempo. Reactive people move fast. They talk fast, they fidget, they dart their eyes. Stable people move with deliberate slow motion. When someone asks you a stressful question, don't answer immediately. Tilt your head. Take a breath. Count to 3. Then speak. By controlling the tempo of the interaction, you signal that you are the one in control. 2. The lower voice principle. When a conflict escalates, the natural tendency is for voices to get higher in pitch and louder in volume. This is the sound of the animal brain. To dominate the situation, do the opposite. Lower your pitch. Speak slightly quieter than the other person. Force them to quiet down to hear you. You are the thermostat, not the thermometer. You don't record the temperature of the room, you set it. 3. Stop over-explaining. Sensitivity often manifests as a need to explain yourself so people don't misunderstand you. "I'm sorry, I just felt this way because..." Stop. A stable person doesn't need to justify their existence. State your position. If you made a mistake, admit it. "I was wrong. I'll fix it." No drama. No tears. Just data and action. Part 7. Conclusion. Respect is not given to those who express themselves most loudly. It is given to those who can carry the heaviest loads without complaining. If you want to be a person of consequence, if you want to be the leader of your company, the head of your family, or the master of your own destiny, you must kill the sensitive version of yourself. That version is a child. It is a version that wants the world to be nice and fair. The world is neither nice nor fair. It is a storm. And your only job is to be the lighthouse. The lighthouse doesn't lean into the waves to see how they feel. It doesn't scream at the wind for blowing too hard. It just stands. It shines its light. It remains. Become the person that others can lean on. Become the person who doesn't break when the pressure rises. When you master your internal state, the world will stop trying to manage you and start trying to follow you. Repetition phrase. Let this be the mantra you repeat when you feel your ego getting bruised or your feelings starting to bubble up. Remind yourself what actually matters in the eyes of the world. Stability earns respect. Do you want to be understood, or do you want to be respected? You can't always have both. Choose stability. Choose the path of the rock. Chapter 5. Stop seeking comfort. It is making you fragile. Part 1. The modern sedation. We live in the most comfortable era in human history. We have climate-controlled rooms, food delivered to our doors with the tap of a thumb, and limitless entertainment to distract us from even a moment of boredom. We have optimized our entire civilization to remove friction. We have declared war on discomfort. But in our quest to make life easier, we have accidentally made ourselves weaker. Comfort is a slow, silent sedation. It doesn't kill you instantly. It just slowly drains your capacity to handle reality. When you live a life governed by comfort, your tolerance threshold for pain, stress, and inconvenience begins to shrink. Eventually, you become a person who is stressed out by a slow internet connection or devastated because someone was slightly rude to you in a checkout line. You must understand this fundamental law of the universe. Resistance is the only way to build strength. You cannot grow a muscle without tension. You cannot harden steel without heat. And you cannot build an unshakable mind in a life that is padded with pillows and participation trophies. If you are constantly seeking the easy path, you are intentionally handicapping yourself for the battles that life will inevitably bring to your doorstep. Part 2. The biological cost of the easy life. Your brain is an adaptation machine. It is designed to survive in the environment you provide for it. If you provide an environment of constant ease, your brain optimizes for ease. It lets its defensive systems go dormant. It lowers its alert status. It becomes soft. Biologically, we are wired to seek comfort to conserve energy. This was a great survival strategy when we were hunter-gatherers dodging lions. But in the modern world, this instinct has become a trap. When you avoid the cold, avoid the sweat, avoid the difficult conversation, and avoid the boring task, you are telling your nervous system, we are fragile. We cannot handle pressure. And your nervous system believes you. The result is mental atrophy. Just as a limb in a cast withers away because it isn't being used, your will withers when it isn't being tested. The more you seek comfort, the more fragile you become. You become like a hothouse flower, beautiful and vibrant as long as the temperature is exactly 72 degrees. But the moment the wind blows or the frost hits, you wither and die. Strength is not found in the absence of pain. It is found in the habituation to it. You don't want a life without storms. You want a mind that is a fortress. And you don't build a fortress by staying inside the tent. Part 3. The avoidance spiral. Fragility manifests most clearly in what I call the avoidance spiral. Think about a conversation you need to have, perhaps with a spouse about a recurring issue, or with a boss about a raise, or with a friend who crossed a boundary. Because the conversation feels uncomfortable, you avoid it. You tell yourself you're waiting for the right time. But while you are seeking the comfort of silence, the problem isn't going away. It's fermenting. It's growing roots. The anxiety you feel about the conversation actually increases every day you avoid it. By choosing the comfortable path of silence today, you are creating a catastrophic explosion for tomorrow. Weak people choose immediate comfort at the expense of long-term peace. Strong people choose immediate discomfort to secure long-term stability. If you avoid hard things, you don't make them go away, you just make them bigger. And more importantly, you make yourself smaller. Every time you back away from a challenge because it's too hard or too stressful, you are losing a piece of your sovereignty. You are training yourself to be a coward. Part 4. The paradox of pain. Here is the great paradox of the human condition. The easy life is actually the hardest way to live. When you seek only comfort, your world becomes very small. You are constantly afraid of things going wrong. You are anxious about the weather, anxious about your health, anxious about what people think. Because you have no callus on your soul, everything hurts. You are living in a state of constant, low-grade vulnerability. However, when you intentionally seek out discomfort, when you train in the rain, when you have the hard talks immediately, when you push your body and mind to the limit, your world becomes very large. Because you know you can handle the hard stuff, the normal stuff becomes easy. If you can stay calm during a 10-mile run in the freezing cold, a stressful meeting at 2 p.m. is nothing. If you can handle the discomfort of a 48-hour fast, a missed lunch won't ruin your mood. By overtraining for discomfort, you make the rest of your life a walk in the park. The person who chooses the hard path eventually finds that life becomes easy. The person who chooses the easy path eventually finds that life becomes impossible. Part 5. Building mental callus. How do we reverse the decay? We do it through intentional hardship. In the elite military units, like the Navy SEALs or the SAS, they don't just teach tactics, they teach suffering. They put candidates in freezing water, they deprive them of sleep, they make them run with heavy weights. Why? Is it because they need to be good at being cold? No, it's because they need to know that their mind can function when their body is screaming. They are building mental callus. A callus is a layer of dead, toughened skin that forms over an area of friction. It's the body's way of saying, this area takes a lot of hits, so I'm going to make it bulletproof. Your mind needs the same thing. You need to rub your mind against the friction of reality until it toughens up. You need to intentionally do things that you do not want to do. Not because they have a specific physical benefit, but because the act of forcing yourself to do them strengthens the will. Part 6. Practical drills for seeking discomfort. To become unshakable, you must start a daily practice of friction. You must hunt for discomfort. Here is how you start. 1. The 5-minute suck rule. Every morning, do something that sucks for at least 5 minutes. A cold shower is the gold standard. Your brain will scream, "No, it's cold. Turn it off." Your job is to stand there, keep your breath steady, and realize that the feeling of cold cannot actually hurt you. You are training the observer to overrule the animal. 2. The hardest task first protocol. Most people start their workday with easy tasks, checking emails, shuffling papers, to ease into the day. This is seeking comfort. Instead, identify the one task that gives you the most anxiety, the hardest, most complex, most uncomfortable job, and do it first. Do it before you have coffee. Do it while you're still tired. Show your mind that hard is the default setting. 3. Lean into social friction. The next time you are in a situation where you feel a social flinch, like wanting to speak up in a meeting, or needing to tell someone no, or wanting to introduce yourself to a stranger, do it immediately. Do not hesitate. The hesitation is the comfort seek kicking in. Crush the hesitation with action. 4. Physical exhaustion. At least 3 times a week. Push your body until your mind wants to quit. Run until you want to stop, then run 1 more mile. Lift until you want to drop the bar, then do 2 more representatives. This isn't about fitness, it's about mind-body dominance. You are proving to your mind that the body is a servant, not a master. Part 7. Conclusion. Comfort is a lie. It promises you happiness, but it delivers only fragility and anxiety. It tells you that you deserve a break, but it's actually stealing your potential. If you want to be unshakable, you must become a comfort atheist. You must stop believing that feeling good is the goal of life. The goal of life is to be capable. The goal is to be the kind of person who can walk into any room, handle any crisis, and endure any hardship without losing their center. You build that person in the moments when you choose the stairs over the elevator. You build them when you choose the salad over the pizza. You build them when you choose the hard conversation over the easy silence. Stop avoiding the fire. Step into it. Let it burn away everything that is weak, everything that is soft, and everything that is fragile. What remains will be the real you, the unshakable you. Repetition phrase. Let this be the filter through which you view every decision you make today. When you see two paths, one easy and one hard, repeat this to yourself. Comfort is the enemy of strength. The bed is warm. Comfort is the enemy of strength. The workout is hard. Comfort is the enemy of strength. The truth is painful. Comfort is the enemy of strength. Choose the friction. Build the callus. Strengthen the mind. Chapter 6. Train yourself to stay calm in chaos. Part 1. The myth of the controlled life. Most people live under a dangerous delusion. They wake up every morning expecting the world to be orderly. They expect their car to start, their coffee to be hot, their internet to be fast, and their colleagues to be polite. They have built a mental model of the world where peace is the default and chaos is an annoying interruption. Because of this flawed expectation, the moment something goes wrong, a stock market dip, a family emergency, a sudden organizational shift, they are emotionally blindsided. They react with shock and indignation, as if the universe has personally insulted them. But the reality of the universe is exactly the opposite. Chaos is the natural state. Entropy is the only law that never takes a day off. Things break. Plans fail. People change their minds. Disasters happen without warning. Order is not the default. Order is a fragile, temporary structure that we fight to maintain. If you want to be unshakable, you must stop wishing for a world without chaos and start training yourself to be the most effective version of yourself within it. You don't need a calmer life. You need a calmer mind. Part 2. The physiology of panic. When chaos erupts, your body initiates an ancient biological program. Your sympathetic nervous system kicks in, flooding your bloodstream with adrenaline. Your heart rate spikes. Your breathing becomes shallow and rapid. Your pupils dilate, and your vision tunnels, meaning you lose your peripheral awareness and focus entirely on the immediate perceived threat. In a prehistoric jungle, this tunnel vision saved your life. It helped you focus on the tiger. But in a modern chaos event, like a heated board meeting or a high-stakes legal battle, tunnel vision is a death sentence for your strategy. When your heart rate crosses 145 beats per minute, your fine motor skills begin to degrade. When it crosses 175 beats per minute, your cognitive processing drops off a cliff. You lose the ability to think abstractly. You lose your sense of empathy. You lose the ability to see multiple solutions. You become, quite literally, stupid with fear. The person who panics in chaos is a person who has lost access to their own intelligence. They are operating on 5% of their brain's capacity while the situation requires 100%. To stay calm is not just a nice emotional state, it is a tactical necessity. If you cannot control your physiology, you cannot control the outcome. Part 3. Calm is a weapon. We usually think of weapons as external tools, knives, guns, money, or influence. But in an environment of pure chaos, calm is the most lethal weapon you can possess. Why? Because calm is a force multiplier. When you are calm, you have the time advantage. While everyone else is reacting to the first thing they see, you are observing the second, third, and fourth layers of the problem. You see the exit that is hidden behind the smoke. You hear the one piece of information that everyone else missed because they were too busy shouting. When you remain calm, you also gain the authority advantage. In any group of people experiencing a crisis, there is a vacuum of leadership. People are desperate for someone to tell them what to do. The person who is panicking cannot lead. The person who is shouting cannot lead. The person who is sitting silently, breathing deeply, and looking at the data is the one everyone will instinctively turn to. In any conflict, the person who keeps their head the longest wins. If I can make you frantic, I have disarmed you. If you can stay calm while I am trying to provoke you, you have rendered my attacks useless. Calmness is the ultimate shield and the ultimate sword. Part 4. The emergency responder mindset. Consider the professional life of an emergency responder, a firefighter, a combat medic, or a flight nurse. These individuals do not operate in peace. Their entire career is spent stepping into other people's worst nightmares. They walk into burning buildings, they treat catastrophic injuries on the side of highways, and they navigate helicopters through storms. Do they survive because they are brave? No. Bravery is a feeling, and feelings are unreliable. They survive because they have standardized their calm. They use a process called triage. When they arrive at a scene of total chaos, bodies everywhere, smoke, noise, screaming, they don't try to solve everything at once. They don't let the noise of the chaos dictate their movements. They follow a cold, clinical checklist. Is the scene safe? Who is the most critical? What is the next right step? They have trained themselves to depersonalize the chaos. To a civilian, a car crash is a tragedy. To a paramedic, a car crash is a series of physiological problems to be solved. By turning the chaos into a problem-solving exercise, they strip the emotion out of it. They stay calm because they are busy executing a protocol. To be unshakable, you must create your own life protocols. You must decide now, in the quiet of this moment, how you will behave when the chaos hits. You don't rise to the occasion in a crisis. You sink to the level of your training. Part 5. The slow is smooth principle. There is a saying in elite military units, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. When chaos hits, the amateur tries to move as fast as possible. They scramble. They rush. They fumble. Their hands shake, they drop their tools, they make mistakes, and they end up having to do the work twice. Their speed actually makes them slower. The professional, however, slows down. They move with a deliberate, almost underwater quality. They make sure every movement is precise. They make sure every word is clear. Because they aren't making mistakes, they finish the task in half the time of the person who is rushing. In your own life, when things go sideways, your instinct will be to hurry up. You will feel a frantic urge to fix it right now. Resist that urge. Force yourself to move 20% slower than you think you should. Speak 20% slower. Take an extra 3 seconds before you hit reply. That extra bit of time allows your brain to catch up with the situation. It prevents the fumble. It allows you to be smooth. And being smooth is the only way to be fast enough to survive chaos. Part 6. Training the inner citadel. How do you build this? You cannot wait for a house fire to learn how to be a firefighter. You must train in controlled chaos. 1. The noise training. Try to perform complex cognitive tasks in distracting environments. Try to do your taxes in a loud coffee shop. Try to read a difficult philosophy book while the TV is on. Most people demand perfect silence to work. That makes them fragile. If you can only think when it's quiet, you are useless in a crisis. Train yourself to focus in the middle of a racket. 2. Box breathing, the tactical breath. This is the technique used by Navy SEALs to lower their heart rate in seconds. Inhale for 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds. Exhale for 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds. This physical hack forces your nervous system out of fight or flight and back into rest and digest. It is the manual override for your biology. Practice this when you are not stressed, so it is a reflex when you are. 3. The worst case visualization. Every morning, take 2 minutes to imagine everything going wrong. Imagine your car breaking down, your biggest client quitting, and your phone breaking. Don't do this to be negative. Do it to pre-process the chaos. When you've already seen the disaster in your mind, the shock is gone. When it actually happens, you don't say, "Oh no." You say, "Ah, yes. I've been expecting you. Here is the plan." Part 7. Conclusion. Chaos is coming. It is already on its way to your house, your office, and your health. You cannot stop it. You cannot pray it away. You cannot manifest a life of perfect order. But you can become the person who thrives in it. You can be the one who doesn't freeze. You can be the one who looks at the flames and sees the opportunity. While others are looking for an exit, you are looking for the solution. When you master the art of being calm in chaos, you are no longer a victim of circumstance. You are the architect of the aftermath. You become the eye of the storm, a center of perfect stillness while the world around you is torn apart. Repetition phrase. As you move through the unpredictable mess of your day, let this 3-word phrase be your anchor. Say it when the phone rings with bad news. Say it when the project crashes. Say it until you believe it. Calm is a weapon. The world is screaming. Calm is a weapon. The deadline is looming. Calm is a weapon. Everyone else is panicking. Calm is a weapon. Stay still. Keep your head. Win the day. Chapter 7. Detach from outcomes. Control only your actions. Part 1. The prison of what if. Most of the stress you feel in your life right now is a ghost. It is a haunting caused by your attachment to things that do not belong to you. You are stressed about whether you will get the promotion. You are anxious about whether your new business will succeed. You are worried about whether people will like your work, whether the economy will hold, or whether your partner will stay faithful. Do you notice the common thread in all of those anxieties? They are all outcomes. They are the finish lines. And here is the brutal reality. You do not own the finish line. You only own the race. When you tie your happiness, your self-worth, and your emotional stability to a specific result, you are essentially handing the keys to your life over to a chaotic and indifferent universe. You are saying, I will only be okay if X happens. And because X is subject to a million variables, luck, timing, other people's whims, and pure randomness, you live in a state of constant, low-grade terror. To be unshakable, you must perform a radical decoupling. You must learn to separate your effort from the result. You must learn to care deeply about what you do, while remaining profoundly indifferent to what happens next. Part 2. The dichotomy of control. This is an ancient wisdom, practiced by the Stoics of Rome and the samurai of Japan. It is called the dichotomy of control. The concept is simple but life-altering. In any given situation, there are things that are up to you, and there are things that are not up to you. Up to you, your opinions, your intentions, your desires, and your own actions. Not up to you, the weather, the stock market, the past, the future, and, most importantly, the thoughts and actions of other people. If you spend even 1% of your mental energy trying to manipulate things that are not up to you, you are leaking power. You are like a person trying to stop the rain by shouting at the clouds. It is an exercise in futility that leaves you exhausted, bitter, and weak. A strong mind is a precision tool. It focuses 100% of its light on the narrow beam of internal action. When a strong-minded person enters a negotiation, they don't walk in thinking, I must get this deal. That is an outcome. Instead, they think, I will prepare more than anyone else, I will listen intently, and I will speak the truth clearly. Those are actions. If they get the deal, they move on. If they don't get the deal, they move on. Their internal state remains unchanged because they won the only game that mattered, the game of their own discipline. Part 3. The archer's metaphor. Think of an archer. The archer chooses the bow. They choose the arrow. They spend years training their muscles to be steady. They stand on the line, they feel the wind, they focus their vision on the bullseye, and they pull the string back with perfect form. Up until the moment the archer lets go of the string, everything is within their control. They can adjust their aim. They can control their breath. They can choose the exact moment of release. But the moment the arrow leaves the bow, the archer's control drops to zero. A sudden gust of wind can blow the arrow off course. A bird can fly into its path. The target itself could be moved by someone else. If the archer is attached to the outcome, they will be devastated if they miss the bullseye. They will feel like a failure. They will get angry at the wind. But if the archer is attached to the process, they realize that the hit or the miss is irrelevant to their skill. If they executed the shot with perfect form, they have succeeded, even if the arrow lands in the dirt. You are the archer. Your work, your parenting, your fitness, and your relationships are the arrows. Your job is to pull the string back with perfect integrity. What the wind does with your arrow is none of your business. Part 4. The entrepreneur's persistence. Consider the world of business and entrepreneurship. Why do most people quit? It isn't because they run out of money, it's because they run out of emotional capital. They launch a product and they expect it to be a hit. When it fails, they feel shaken. They feel like the universe has rejected them. They take the outcome personally. Because they are hurt, they hesitate to try again. They spend weeks moping, analyzing why the mean world didn't buy their product. Now, look at the high-performance entrepreneur. They understand that success is a statistical probability, not a guarantee. They view their actions as inputs. Input 1. Call 50 leads. Input 2. Improve the website. Input 3. Write 10 ads. If the output, the money, doesn't show up today, they don't get depressed. They don't question their worth. They simply look at their inputs and say, the process is correct, I just need more repetitions. Because they are detached from the immediate win, they are immune to the sting of defeat. This immunity allows them to stay in the game longer than anyone else. And in life, the person who stays in the game the longest eventually hits the jackpot. Persistence is not a feeling, it is the logical result of detaching from outcomes. Part 5. Anxiety is the noise of the ego. Why is it so hard to detach? Because your ego wants to believe that it is the god of its own universe. Your ego wants to take credit for the wins, and therefore, it must take the blame for the losses. When you are attached to an outcome, you are actually seeking validation. You want the world to give you a gold star to prove that you are smart, talented, or worthy. Anxiety is the noise the ego makes when it realizes it might not get its gold star. When you are worried about an upcoming presentation, you aren't actually worried about the information. You are worried about how you will look. You are worried about the outcome of your reputation. When you detach, you silence the ego. You say, it doesn't matter how I look. It only matters that I deliver the message as best as I can. Suddenly, the anxiety vanishes. The noise stops. By releasing the outcome, you actually perform better. You are more fluid. You are more present. You are more charismatic. Ironically, the less you care about the result, the more likely you are to get the result you wanted. Part 6. Training the effort focus. To master this, you must stop tracking results and start tracking disciplines. You need to change your internal scoreboard. 1. Define your success metrics internally. If you are going to the gym to lose 10 pounds, you are outcome dependent. If the scale doesn't move on Wednesday, you'll be tempted to quit. Change the metric. Your success metric is, did I move for 45 minutes today? If you did, you won. The weight loss is a side effect that you don't control. 2. The post-mortem of action. After any significant event, a date, a meeting, a hard day, don't ask, how did it go? Ask, how did I do? Did I maintain my composure? Did I stay true to my values? Did I put in the required effort? If the answer is yes, then the day was a 10/10, regardless of the bank balance or the other person's reaction. 3. Relinquish the need for results. Practice doing things where there is no win possible. Go for a walk with no destination. Help someone who can never help you back. Write a journal entry that you will burn immediately. This trains your brain to find satisfaction in the doing, not the getting. Part 7. Conclusion. The world is a giant, spinning gambling wheel. You can place your bets, but you cannot stop the ball. If you live for the win, you will die by the loss. You will be a slave to the ball of circumstance. You will be happy one day and miserable the next, and you will never, ever be truly strong. But when you decide that your only win is the mastery of your own actions, when you decide that as long as you did your best, the rest is irrelevant, you become untouchable. You can walk into a fire and be at peace, because you know that burning or surviving is not the point. The point is how you walk. Focus on the bow. Focus on the aim. Focus on the breath. Let the arrow go, and never look back to see where it lands. The act of shooting was the victory. Repetition phrase. Carry this phrase in your pocket. Use it as a shield against the ghosts of anxiety and the fear of failure. When the world tries to pressure you about the future, tell yourself, control effort. Release outcome. Will they hire me? Control effort. Release outcome. Will this investment pay off? Control effort. Release outcome. Will I win the race? Control effort. Release outcome. Do the work. Let the universe handle the score. Chapter 8. Silence your need for validation. Part 1. The invisible leash. Imagine walking down a busy city street with a leash around your neck. The end of that leash is not held by a friend or a guardian, but by every stranger you pass. Every time someone frowns at your clothes, they tug the leash. Every time someone ignores your greeting, they jerk it. Every time someone whispers as you walk by, you stumble. This sounds like a nightmare, but it is exactly how most people live their internal lives. You are walking through life on a leash held by the opinions of others. The need for validation is the single greatest drain on human potential. It is an invisible tax you pay on every decision you make. You don't buy the car you want. You buy the car that will make your neighbors respect you. You don't take the job that fulfills you. You take the job that sounds impressive at a dinner party. You don't speak your truth. You speak the version of the truth that you think will get the most likes or the fewest dislikes. When you live for the approval of others, you have committed the ultimate act of self-betrayal. You have handed the remote control of your happiness to people who don't even know you, and who, frankly, aren't even looking at you. To be unshakable, you must cut the leash. You must become emotionally self-sufficient. Part 2. The evolution of the social mirror. Why do we do this? Why is it so incredibly painful to be criticized or ignored? It is because of our ancient biological hardware. For 99% of human history, the tribe was our life support system. If the tribe didn't like you, they kicked you out. If you were kicked out, you died in the wilderness. To our primitive brain, social disapproval is a literal death threat. But we no longer live in tribes of 50 people on the savannah. We live in a global village of 8 billion people. Our brains haven't caught up to the technology. When a stranger leaves a mean comment on your photo, your brain reacts as if you are being exiled from the tribe. Your heart races, your stomach twists, and you feel a desperate urge to fix it. This is a biological glitch. You are experiencing a survival response for a situation that has zero impact on your survival. The social mirror, the way others see you, is almost always distorted. People see you through the lens of their own insecurities, their own bad days, and their own biases. If you try to fix your identity based on a distorted mirror, you will end up as a twisted version of yourself. A strong mind recognizes that the only mirror that matters is the one inside. Part 3. The fragility of the performer. When you seek validation, you are no longer a person. You are a performer. You are constantly scanning the room, checking for applause. The problem with being a performer is that you are only as good as your last show. If the audience cheers today, you feel like a god. If they boo tomorrow, you feel like a failure. This creates a bipolar identity. You have no core. You are a weather vane, spinning frantically to catch the wind of public opinion. Think about the person who is everyone's friend. They are the ultimate people pleaser. They agree with whoever is in the room. They never take a stand. They change their personality like a chameleon. Now, ask yourself, do you respect that person? Do you trust them? No, because you know that the moment you leave the room, they will change again to please the next person. By trying to be liked by everyone, they have become respected by no one. They are social beggars, standing on the street corner of life, holding a hat out and hoping someone will drop a good job or a "you're so smart" into it. A master of the mind is not a beggar. A master is a sovereign. A sovereign doesn't ask for permission to exist. They exist, they act, and they let the world deal with the consequences. Part 4. Feedback versus validation, the crucial distinction. Let's be clear. Silencing your need for validation does not mean becoming an arrogant jerk who doesn't listen to anyone. There is a massive difference between feedback and validation. Validation is emotional junk food. It is the attaboy, the "you're amazing," the likes on a screen. It feels good for 5 minutes, but it doesn't build anything. It is about who you are. Feedback is data. It is the critique of a mentor, the analysis of a failure, the correction of a mistake. It is about what you did. A weak mind confuses the two. When they receive feedback, "This report has errors," they take it as a lack of validation. "He thinks I'm stupid." They get defensive. They shut down. A strong mind ignores validation but craves feedback. They don't care if you like them, but they care deeply if you have information that can make them more effective. They use the world as a laboratory, not a courtroom. In a courtroom, you are trying to prove your innocence or your worth. In a laboratory, you are just trying to find out what works. If you can learn to take the data and discard the drama, you become an unstoppable learning machine. You can hear the harshest criticism and stay perfectly calm because you aren't looking for a hug, you're looking for a strategy. Part 5. The power of social indifference. There is a profound freedom in being socially indifferent. When you stop caring what people think, you gain a superpower: consistency. Most people's discipline is tied to their audience. They work hard when the boss is watching. They eat well when they want to impress a date. They act virtuous when people are looking. But the moment the audience is gone, they crumble. When you silence the need for validation, your audience is always the same: it is you. You do the work because it is your standard. You stay disciplined because it is your code. Whether the world cheers or spits on you, your output remains the same. This makes you terrifying to those who want to control you. You cannot be bought with praise, and you cannot be silenced with shame. When you don't need anything from people, not their money, not their sex, and especially not their approval, you are the most powerful person in any room. You are untouchable because you have no grip points for their manipulation. Part 6. Training the validation fast. You have been addicted to the dopamine of approval your whole life. To break the addiction, you must go through withdrawal. You must intentionally practice being unvalidated. 1. The silence protocol. The next time you do something great, you hit a personal record in the gym, you finish a difficult project, you give a large sum to charity, tell no one. Do not post it. Do not mention it in conversation. Sit with the internal satisfaction of a job well done. Notice the itch to tell someone. That itch is your ego begging for a hit of validation. Don't scratch it. Let the itch burn out. 2. Practice being disliked. Once a week, intentionally do something that is socially awkward but harmless. Wear a slightly wrong outfit. Sit alone in a restaurant without your phone. Express a mild, honest opinion that you know the group might disagree with. Feel the sting of social friction. Notice that you didn't die. Notice that the sky didn't fall. You are building social callus. 3. The 3-second rule of praise. When someone gives you a compliment, say thank you, and then move on. Do not let it soak in. Do not replay it in your head for the next hour. Treat praise like a beautiful sunset, acknowledge it, and then look away. If you let praise build you up, you are giving criticism the power to tear you down. Stay at level 0. 4. Stop checking the room. When you enter a room or meeting, stop looking around to see if people are looking at you. Focus entirely on your mission. If you are there to learn, listen. If you are there to lead, speak. Become task-oriented instead of self-oriented. Part 7. Conclusion. The need for validation is a trap that keeps you small, predictable, and weak. It is a cage with open doors that you refuse to walk through because you're waiting for someone to tell you it's okay to leave. You don't need anyone's permission to be great. You don't need anyone's approval to be happy. And you certainly don't need the world to agree with your path for it to be the right path for you. The moment you stop seeking validation is the moment you start living. You will lose some friends. You will upset some people. You will be called cold or arrogant by those who can no longer manipulate you. Wear those labels like medals of honor. They are the proof that you are no longer a slave. Your internal standard is the only judge that matters. When you lay your head on the pillow at night, the only question is, did I live according to my code? If the answer is yes, then the world's opinion is just white noise in the background of a masterpiece. Repetition phrase. As you navigate your social world today, keep this phrase as a shield. When you feel yourself wanting to brag, when you feel yourself shrinking to fit in, or when you feel hurt by a comment, say it. Validation is a trap. They gave you a compliment. Validation is a trap. They didn't like your post. Validation is a trap. They think you're weird. Validation is a trap. Stay sovereign. Stay unshakable. Chapter 9. Build an unbreakable internal standard. Part 1. The motivation myth. We have been sold a lie about how greatness is achieved. We are told that we need to find our passion, that we need to stay motivated, and that we should listen to our hearts. This advice is not just useless, it is actively destructive to the development of a strong mind. Motivation is a feeling, and like all feelings, it is fickle, transient, and unreliable. Motivation is the fair-weather friend of the mind. It shows up when the sun is shining, when you've had 8 hours of sleep, and when the goal feels new and exciting. But the moment the clouds roll in, the moment you are tired, bored, or stressed, motivation packs its bags and leaves you stranded. If you rely on motivation to get your work done, you are a slave to your internal chemistry. You are waiting for a permission slip from your brain to be productive. This is why most people never finish what they start. They start with a burst of feeling, and they quit the moment that feeling evaporates. To be unshakable, you must kill the need for motivation and replace it with an internal standard. A standard is not a goal, it is a baseline. It is the minimum level of performance you accept from yourself, regardless of how you feel, who is watching, or how much you are suffering. Part 2. Standards versus goals. Most people are goal-oriented. They say, I want to lose 20 pounds, or I want to earn 6 figures. The problem with goals is that they are in the future. Because they are in the future, your brain finds a million ways to negotiate with you in the present. It says, we can skip the gym today because we have 6 months to hit our goal. A standard is different. A standard exists in the now. A goal is, I want to be a writer. A standard is, I write 1,000 words every morning before I check my phone. A goal is, I want to be fit. A standard is, I do not miss a scheduled workout. Period. When you have a goal, you are constantly asking yourself, do I feel like doing this today? When you have a standard, that question is irrelevant. You don't ask yourself if you feel like brushing your teeth or feel like wearing clothes to work. You just do it because it is part of your identity. An unbreakable internal standard takes the decision out of the moment. You've already decided. The contract was signed long ago. Your job is simply to execute the terms of the contract. Part 3. The consistency gap. In every field, from business to professional sports to the arts, there is a phenomenon I call the consistency gap. On one side, you have the talented but inconsistent. These are people with high ceilings but low floors. When they are on, they are brilliant, but they are rarely on. They are governed by their moods. If they have a breakup, they disappear for a month. If they feel burnt out, they stop producing. Because they are unpredictable, they can never be truly relied upon, and they eventually plateau. On the other side, you have the standard-driven. These people might have less raw talent, but they have a high floor. You know exactly what you are going to get from them every single day. They show up when they are sick. They show up when they are sad. They show up when they are uninspired. Over a long enough timeline, the standard-driven individual will always outperform the talented amateur. Why? Because while the talented person is waiting for the perfect moment to strike, the standard-driven person is stacking bricks. 1 brick a day, every day, eventually creates a fortress that no amount of sporadic brilliance can tear down. Consistency is the ultimate superpower because it is the only thing that compounds. And you cannot be consistent if you are emotional. You can only be consistent if you are governed by a standard. Part 4. Negotiating with the terrorist. Inside your head, there is a master negotiator. It is your animal brain, and its only job is to keep you safe and comfortable. The moment you set a hard standard, this negotiator starts talking. You wake up at 5 a.m. to run, and it whispers, "It's raining outside. You'll get sick. It's better for your health if you sleep another hour. You can run twice as far tomorrow." This voice is a terrorist, and you must follow the cardinal rule of high-stakes diplomacy. You do not negotiate with terrorists. The moment you engage with that voice, The moment you start considering its arguments, you have already lost. You have allowed your feelings to enter the boardroom. A strong mind recognizes the voice of the negotiator and ignores it. You don't argue with it. You don't try to motivate it. You just move your body while it is still talking. Your internal standard is the wall that the negotiator cannot climb. When you say, "I do not miss a workout," that is a non-negotiable fact. It is not up for debate. It is as certain as gravity. When you turn your disciplines into facts rather than options, the negotiator eventually stops talking. It realizes that you are no longer a viable target for its manipulation. Part 5. The integrity of the dark room. A true internal standard is not about what you do when the world is watching. It is about what you do in the dark room, when you are completely alone, when no one will ever know if you cut corners, and when there are no likes or applauses waiting for you. If your discipline depends on external pressure, a boss, a coach, or a social media audience, then you don't have a standard, you have a performance. You are a social actor. The problem with being an actor is that when the audience leaves, the character disappears. Unshakable strength comes from self-integrity. Self-integrity is the ability to keep a promise you made to yourself. Every time you break a promise to yourself, every time you say you'll wake up early and you don't, every time you say you'll eat clean and you don't, you are stabbing your self-confidence in the heart. You stop trusting yourself. And if you don't trust yourself, you will always be shaken by the world. But when you build a history of keeping your promises, when you know for a fact that you will do what you said you would do, you develop a quiet certainty. You don't need to yell. You don't need to brag. You just know. And that knowledge makes you untouchable. Part 6. How to build your code. To build an unbreakable internal standard, you must define your non-negotiables. You cannot be perfect in everything, but you must be absolute in a few things. 1. The rule of 3. Pick 3 areas of your life, e.g., physical, professional, personal. For each area, set one minimum standard. Not a maximum goal, but a minimum floor. Physical, I will move my body for 30 minutes every day. Professional, I will complete my most important task before 10 a.m. Personal, I will never speak disrespectfully to my family, no matter how angry I am. 2. The no exception policy. For the next 30 days, these 3 standards are absolute. No exceptions for birthdays, no exceptions for holidays, and no exceptions for bad days. If you have a fever of 102, you do 30 minutes of light stretching. If you are traveling, you find a way. You are training your brain to understand that the standard is law. 3. Monitor the micro leaks. Pay attention to the small areas where you let your standards slide. Do you leave your dishes in the sink? Do you leave your bed unmade? Do you show up 5 minutes late to meetings? These are micro leaks of discipline. A strong mind understands that how you do anything is how you do everything. If you have low standards for your environment, you will eventually have low standards for your character. Fix the small things, and the big things will stay in place. Part 7. Conclusion. The world is looking for people with standards. In a sea of people who are trying their best but constantly failing because they don't feel like it, the person with a code stands out like a giant. Your standards are the internal compass that keeps you on course when the fog of emotion rolls in. When you are grieving, your standards tell you how to act. When you are winning, your standards keep you humble. When you are losing, your standards keep you moving. Stop asking the universe to give you motivation. The universe doesn't care about your feelings. It cares about your outputs. Build a mind that is governed by the iron laws of discipline rather than the shifting sands of mood. Be the person who shows up. Be the person who finishes. Be the person whose word is bond, first and foremost to yourself. Repetition phrase. As you face the temptations of comfort and the whispers of the negotiator today, keep this phrase at the front of your mind. Let it be the gavel that ends every internal debate. Standards over feelings. You're tired. Standards over feelings. You're bored. Standards over feelings. You're uninspired. Standards over feelings. Build the standard. Become the man or woman of your word. Strengthen the mind until nothing, not even your own brain, can shake you. Chapter 10. Become untouchable, the final shift. Part 1. The sovereign mind. We have traveled through the forge. We have looked at the habits of weakness, the power of the pause, the skill of emotional regulation, and the necessity of internal standards. Now, we arrive at the destination. We arrive at the state of being untouchable. To be untouchable does not mean that you are a robot. It does not mean that you have stopped feeling love, or grief, or joy. It does not mean you have built a wall so high that life cannot reach you. To be untouchable means that you have reclaimed the sovereignty of your soul. Most people are open borders. Anyone can walk into their mind and start a fire. A rude stranger, a fluctuating bank balance, a piece of bad news, or a snide comment. These are all foreign invaders that walk right into the center of their consciousness and take over. When you make the final shift, you realize that your internal state is a private sanctuary. It is a kingdom where you are the absolute monarch. You finally understand that while you cannot control what the world throws at your gates, you have 100% authority over what is allowed to cross the threshold. You become untouchable because you have stopped giving the world permission to hurt you. Part 2. The alchemy of insult. The ultimate test of an untouchable mind is how it handles disrespect. For most, an insult is a wound. Someone calls you incompetent, or lazy, or ugly, and you feel a sting. That sting is followed by a surge of defensive energy. You want to argue. You want to prove them wrong. You want to hurt them back. Why? Because you have given their words the power to define your reality. You have accepted their delivery. Imagine someone tries to hand you a gift-wrapped box filled with garbage. If you take the box, you now have a box of garbage. You have to deal with the smell. You have to figure out how to dispose of it. But if you simply keep your hands behind your back and refuse to take the box, who does the garbage belong to? It still belongs to them. They are the ones standing in the street holding a stinking box. When an untouchable person is insulted, they don't get angry. They observe. They look at the person shouting at them with a clinical, almost detached curiosity. They think, that person is in a lot of pain. They are trying to project their internal chaos onto me. Interesting. By refusing to react, you have denied them entry. You have looked at their gift of anger and said, no, thank you. That doesn't belong here. When nothing touches you, you gain a terrifying level of dominance. You are the only person in the room who is truly free. Part 3. Maintaining composure in the fire of failure. The second test of the untouchable mind is failure. For the weak-minded, failure is an identity. They lose a business and say, I am a failure. They get rejected and say, I am unlovable. They let the external outcome stain their internal essence. The untouchable mind performs a separation of self. They view failure as data. When the business goes under, the untouchable person remains composed. Not because they don't care, but because they understand that their value is not tied to a balance sheet. They take the hit, they feel the pressure, but they do not let the pressure crack their core. Think of a submarine. A submarine is designed to operate under thousands of pounds of external pressure. It doesn't survive by being stronger than the ocean. It survives because its internal pressure is perfectly regulated. As long as the internal hull remains intact, the ocean can do whatever it wants. It can't get in. You must build an internal hull that is thicker than any failure life can throw at you. When everything is going wrong, when the world is burning around you, you must be the one person who can still think clearly. Because you aren't shaken by the fire, you are the only one who can find the water. Part 4. The power of no attachment. The final shift happens when you realize that your peace is more valuable than your ego. Most of our emotional shaking comes from our ego's attachment to things. We are attached to being right. We are attached to looking good. We are attached to having things go our way. Every attachment is a handle that the world can grab onto and use to jerk you around. An untouchable person has sanded down the handles. If you don't need to be right, no one can frustrate you by being wrong. If you don't need to be liked, no one can hurt you by disliking you. If you don't need to be comfortable, no one can scare you with hardship. This is not a state of apathy. It is a state of total freedom. You still act, you still build, and you still love, but you do it without the need for it to fulfill you. You are already full. Your strength comes from within, so nothing external can take it away. When you reach this state, you are no longer a reaction machine. You are an action center. You move through the world with a sense of play. Life becomes a game where you are the most dangerous player because you have nothing to lose. Part 5. The Observer Perspective. To stay untouchable in the heat of a crisis, you must learn to live in the third person. When your heart rate starts to climb and your mind starts to race, step back. Mentally move your camera angle until you are looking down at yourself from the corner of the room. Look at the you that is struggling. See the biological response for what it is. Say to yourself, look at how the heart is beating. Look at how the adrenaline is moving. The body is having a reaction. The mind is trying to panic. By becoming the observer, you detach from the experiencer. The experiencer is the one who is shaking. The observer is perfectly still. The observer is the untouchable part of you. The more time you spend as the observer, the less power the physical world has over your soul. You begin to realize that pain is just a sensation, and fear is just a suggestion. Part 6. Why the world bows to the unshakable. History is written by the people who remained composed when everyone else was losing their minds. Long-term dominance is not about who is the fastest, the smartest, or the strongest. It is about who can stay steady the longest. In every market crash, every war, every corporate takeover, and every family crisis, there is a culling. The reactive, the emotional, and the fragile are filtered out. They make desperate moves and they collapse. The people who remain, the untouchables, are the ones who inherit the wreckage. They are the ones who can see the opportunities that panic hides. They are the ones who can lead the survivors. If you want to win in the long term, you must become a black hole for chaos. Let the chaos enter your field of vision and disappear. Do not reflect it. Do not amplify it. Just absorb it and remain still. When people realize they cannot move you, that they cannot make you angry, or sad, or afraid, they will eventually stop trying. And then, they will start following. Part 7. The Final Commandment. You have the tools. You have the philosophy. You have the standards. But none of it matters if you don't make the decision. Mental strength is a decision you make every single morning when you open your eyes. It is a decision to be the master of your internal house. It is a decision to refuse the garbage boxes that people try to hand you. The world is going to try to shake you today. It is going to try to prove that you are still that emotional, weak, reactive person you used to be. It's going to test your new hull. It's going to look for a handle it can grab. Do not give it one. Stand in the middle of the storm. Let the lightning flash. Let the thunder roar. Let the people scream. And just smile. Because you know a secret that they don't. Nothing can touch you unless you give it permission. And you are done giving permission. Part 8. Conclusion, the audiobook coda. This is the end of the book, but it is the beginning of your life as a sovereign individual. The path to being unshakable is a lonely one at first. People will miss the old you, the one they could predict, the one they could guilt trip, the one they could manipulate with a few choice words. They will call you different. They will call you cold. Let them. You aren't cold, you are free. You are no longer a leaf. You are the tree. You are no longer the passenger. You are the pilot. Go out into the world today and practice your new skill. Delay the reaction. Hold the standard. Seek the discomfort. And above all, guard the gates of your mind with everything you have. You are untouchable. Now act like it. Repetition phrase. As we close this audiobook, let this be the final word that echoes in your mind until it becomes your very nature. Say it to the world, say it to your enemies, and say it to your own fears. Nothing touches me unless I allow it. The insult. Nothing touches me unless I allow it. The failure. Nothing touches me unless I allow it. The chaos. Nothing touches me unless I allow it. I do not allow it. Stay strong. Stay unshakable. Stay sovereign.